Hello, I'm Wayne from TorqueCars. Apparently in the UK, upwards of 130,000 people misfuel their car. They put the wrong fuel in their tank at filling stations. So we're going to look at what you should do if you've put the wrong fuel in your car. We're going to look at the damage that happens if you put petrol in a diesel and diesel in a petrol. And we're also going to look at ways you can prevent this from happening. The most important thing is not to start the car. That's when the damage happens. Turn off the ignition and get someone to push the car to a safe location. The staff at filling stations are quite used to dealing with this. They see it a lot. We're pretty stressed because it's probably the first time we've done it. We have heard of people who've done it multiple times, but we won't talk about that right now. It's a mistake every driver's entitled to make the once, but it is certainly a powerful one to learn by. So what happens if you put petrol in the diesel engine? Well, that is the killer. The diesel fuel lubricates the engine, the fuel pump and the components in the engine. So petrol will do the opposite. It will create a lot of friction in the engine, and that friction builds up very, very quickly. So the longer the engine is run for, the more likely it is that you've damaged the fuel pump and other components in your diesel engine, as well as the fact that petrol is more explosive than diesel, so it can cause a lot more internal damage to the engine. It depends a lot on how the engine's set up, but the key thing is do not start the engine. Get help. If you manage to put diesel in a petrol engine, it's actually quite challenging to do because the nozzles are larger and they do not physically fit into the tanks of petrol engines. So typically on a petrol engine filled with diesel fuel, you'll get a lot more smoke, or the engine will just cut out and refuse to run. When you call someone out, they will have to drain all of the fuel from the tank. It can't obviously be separated. They have to drain the tank completely, and then you need to top it up with the fuel that your car actually uses. If you've started your engine and done damage, you will typically need to replace the fuel pump and components of the fuel system. It can prove to be quite expensive, but the longer the engine is run, the more damage that happens. So how can you prevent this problem from happening? Well, it typically happens when people aren't really paying attention. They may be using their mobile phone or they're stressed. We saw during the recent fuel shortages that the increase in people misfueling the car went up exponentially. So with the added stress and the low availability of fuels, people were subconsciously just reaching for maybe the only pump nozzle that had fuel available, and it was the wrong type for their car, and they were causing all sorts of damage and problems. So it really pays to concentrate at the fuel pumps. Don't be using your mobile phone or allow yourself to be distracted with special offers going on in the shop. Really focus that initial few seconds as you open the filler cap, and it's a good idea to have some kind of label in the filler cap just to remind you what type of fuel this car uses. It's especially important to do that in a household where you've got two cars, where one is a diesel and one is a petrol, and you're using both and filling both up. That is probably the typical scenario where most people forget and misfuel the car. So thanks for watching. We hope this has been informative to you. Be sure to drop by our site, say hi to us in our forums. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. We've got lots of other money saving tips coming up.